And it was 8 months almost to the day that Jacob was killed. It was now like August. And I was coming home. I had been with friends. The boys were at the house. And I came home, pulled the garage door opened up. I pulled my little Volkswagen bug in there and I opened my door and a man stepped into that spot. And he said, "Can you give me directions to Sandy Run?" I knew he was fake. I knew that was just something that he was saying just to catch me off guard. So I thought of something really quick. I said, "Oh, you mean Lake Joy?" So it was I named another road rather. And he goes, "Yeah." And I went, now I knew I was dead, right? It's like, I'm dying. I'm going to die right here in my little car. And I said, "Sure, let me get out and I'll get you directions." And he backed up. I got out and I tried to run, grabbed me by the hair. We fisticuffed all the way to his car as he tried to shove me in. I ended up in the back of his car.
Today, I'm joined by the incredible Sylvia Moore Myers. She's an author, she's a grief recovery expert, and she's a mental health coach. And she has a truly extraordinary and unimaginable story of resilience, healing, and transformation. In this conversation, she opens up about losing her son, Jacob, to a truly senseless act of violence, and then surviving her own harrowing encounter with an attacker just a few months later. Through these horrific events, she emerged with this, I don't know, deep insights of grief and truly the power of having scars and the strength within us all to beautifully mend. In this conversation, she shares this raw, unfiltered truth about navigating grief and trauma, the lessons she's learned along the way, and her transformative S.C.A.R framework, which stands for strength, courage, adaptability, and resilience. She also sheds light on how we can embrace these scars as symbols of growth and healing. So, once again, this episode is just a powerful testament to the human spirit, and I'm really, truly honored to share Sylvia's story with you. Without further ado, here is my conversation with Sylvia Moore Myers. I'm Matt Gilhooly, and this is The Life Shift, candid conversations about the pivotal moments that have changed lives forever. Hello, my friends. Welcome to the Life Shift podcast. I have been talking, and you haven't been hearing this, but I've been talking to Sylvia now for a couple minutes. Hey, Sylvia.
Hey, how are you?
Fantastic. As you know, well, that's a lie. I might be getting a cold, but we're just telling me, right? Like I'm telling myself I'm not going to get a cold.
You're not going to get a cold.
And that is the solve.
Mind over matter. You're done.
Thank you for wanting to be part of the Life Shift podcast. We were talking a little bit before recording. I dropped a little bomb on you. So the Life Shift podcast really comes from my own experience of losing my mom when I was a kid, and my failure is what I call it. Other people don't like when I say that, but my failure of grief as I went through 20 years of trying to make a mess of my life and then figuring it out. And part of that is the questions that I ask my guests come from that personal experience. And we were talking of how I don't do a lot of research because I don't want to know too much until it kind of gets revealed live. And so sometimes that takes us down really fun roads. So I'm looking forward to this conversation. So thank you for being open to that.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's what I do.
Well, life is important. I think stories I've found, having talked to now 167 people, maybe more on the Life Shift, it's everyone's story, although wildly different, has so many pieces in which we can resonate with in our own journey, or can inspire us in another way, or can kick off a different perspective of something. So I think it's just so beautiful when people are willing to kind of bear all and share that deeply personal story, whether it's with society used to tell us that we shouldn't share some of these stories out loud, right? Like we should hide behind things and not tell people. So it's just such a beautiful journey that I've been on. And hopefully you found the same in your own journey.
Absolutely did.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Do you find, before we get into your specific story, do you find that sharing your story helps heal you in new ways each time you tell it?
It does. And, I think a lot of people hide behind a mask, and I think I told you I'm the expert mask wearer. I've been wearing one my whole life. When you pull that mask down and you tell it how it really happened, what really hurt, and you get into the minutia of what happened in your life. You find out that there's a lot of people that have had the same experience. Some of them have moved on, and some of them are still stuck like you. And I love to tell people, people with wounds are looking for people with scars. We want to know, how did you get to that point? How did you get to that point where you are now? And when I got to that point, I wrote my book.
And now you can help people without even having to say the words out loud anymore. It's a beautiful journey, and you're right. What you just said was my journey from like 8 years old to probably like early 30s, in which had I, and logically I knew all of this was true, but in my emotions and in my brain, had I seen other people that had a dead mom in the way that I did, that were succeeding and doing great things and not having to try to get everyone's approval, maybe earlier in my life, I would have been like, oh, like this is possible. I'm not the only one out here. I knew logically I wasn't, but you feel that way. You feel like you might be the only one that would understand how you're feeling. And it's just not true.
We broke grief in this country about 100 years ago. We just broke it. It was going on just fine. We Grandmother would die, we would go to her home where she would be laid out in the parlor, and we'd all gather in the kitchen and eat and talk and maybe even laugh a little bit about the funny things grandma did before she died. And then we would bury her, and the kids would be there, and the grandkids and the great grandkids and all of the extended family. And it would be sad but happy but resolving. And then we would go on, We decided for some reason to change all that, and now we take everybody to this strange building, including small children. It's like, "Why is grandma here? This is not where she lives. Why are we here?" And then we stuff the children in the kitchen at the funeral parlor, which they stole from grandma's house. And we gather around and we torture the family members that are standing by the casket for 2 or 3 or 4 hours, depending on how many people showed up. And we just stand in line to say something very profound like, "God needed Jacob in heaven." It's like, "Did he?" It's like, "There's another angel there now." I said, "Is there?" Jacob's work on earth was done. And I'm like, what was he working on and why did he finish so soon? But we broke grief, and now we don't model it for children like we should. And therefore, our children do not learn how to grieve and go through those stages and resolve, which they could have taken care of, in your case, 30 years before.
Yeah, my mom was 32 and people would
Oh,
tell me the same thing. They would be like, yeah, her work on earth was finished. And I was like, I
what
was
was she
8.
worried? Really?
Well, I mean, I thought she was old. At 8, you think
Okay, yeah,
32 is pretty old.
yeah,
So,
30, practically in the grave at
but
32.
yeah. And to that point, like, we're not even taught how to be with someone that is grieving. We don't know how, like, there's nothing we can say, really,
No, there's nothing in
besides,
the English language. Think about it for a second. Our language doesn't have anything for saying, "I don't know what to do. Your person that you loved has died." There's no words for that. The best you can do is say, "You're sorry. My condolences," which is supposed to be from, like, your boss, not from your family and friends, or, "I love you and I'm here for you," which is the best answer. And I'm sorry is okay, but, we feel like we have to create something, but, God and never created a word for that, and it was a no word for a reason. It doesn't exist for a reason.
it's so fascinating, and I'm glad that, it sucks that our situations bring us here to have this conversation, but at the same time, I find it myself personally, just to my earlier question about this healing, every time I'm able to talk about my journey, it gives me another piece of the puzzle that
Yeah.
kind of, finishes that piece. I don't know, finish is not the right word, but, it starts to make it feel more complete in that way. So, any case, let's get to you. Before we get into your detailed story and your life shift moment and how you got to where you are, tell us who you are now. Like, who is Sylvia?
Well, let's see. I am a grandmother to 2 lovely grandchildren. I've ordered 8 more, but they won't reproduce. Really upset about it too. And no one's named their child Sylvia yet, so I'm very upset about that. So I'm soliciting neighbors now for that to happen, but I'm a 5th generation Sylvia. I wanted to continue, but I have 3 beautiful sons. One is in heaven, two are here. It live near us. And my husband, Adam, is not my first husband. He is my last. And also my very best friend in the world. God put him in my life at a point when we both needed each other. We were as mismatched as you can imagine, an ink pen and a pencil, a crayon and a black magic marker, whatever. We just didn't match, but it's now 20 years. So I think we're pretty stuck with each other. And I'm a writer, I'm an author, I'm a speaker. I've trained with National Speaking Association so I can speak. I'm a late autistic. I'm a late diagnosed autistic. Talk about a puzzle piece. You're 61 years old and find out that you're autistic. It's like, really? Let me sit here for a few weeks and think about my whole life.
I would imagine that's like a flood
Book
of.
2 coming out next year. But yeah, so I own real estate companies and property management companies. That's what we do for a living to bring in money. And my husband's a contractor and he has a psychology degree. I'm working on a master's degree in trauma crisis
So you're not busy.
counseling. So I just have nothing left to do.
Yeah.
I'm just so bored.
Hey, it sounds very fulfilling. Does it feel fulfilling?
It does. And, the first time in my life I've really felt fulfilled is, the last probably 10 years, I'd say, of my life. We have a small farm also and chickens and goats and
So you are really bored.
peacocks.
I'm sorry. It's so sad that you have nothing to do.
I have absolutely nothing to do. I'm
That's why
bored out of
you
my
you made beautiful time for us this Saturday afternoon. So
I
thank you
feel
for
like
that.
I've been given a lot of revelation. I've been given a lot of gifts, and I have a very short time on earth. I'm 63 in January.
Happy birthday,
So
almost.
thank
Well, by
you.
this time comes out, you'll be
Yeah,
63.
I'm 63, y'all. I could get Social Security, isn't it great? And I'm starting another career. But I just feel I don't there's no promised time. And so with what I've learned about grief recovery, with what I've learned about how easy it is to walk someone through those steps and get them to, from scar to heal, I just feel like I need to be in a rush to do that. I don't need, to sit around and contemplate it. I need to get busy and do. So that's why.
You're making it happen, which I think is a beautiful thing. A lot of us, to your point, I think a lot of us sit around like, oh, there'll be time. And then pretty soon 10 years have gone by. And you're like, oh, I guess I could have done that 10 years ago.
Yeah, I'm
So
gonna
good
give
for
it a
you.
go until I get till the Lord my work on earth is done, as we talked about earlier.
Exactly.
Yeah, so
Yeah. So why don't you just take us back however far you want to go and kind of paint the picture of your life before this major life shift that's kind of brought this version of Sylvia out to the world?
I appreciate that. And I offered you before a red pill, a blue pill, or the purple.
I said take them all.
I'm gonna give you a purple pill, which is a little bit of everything. So I want to start in the middle. We'll work our way back each end. How's that sound?
Sounds great.
All right. So in 2003, I had a thriving real estate company. Married to the nicest man on the planet, James. He was a sweet husband. I had 3 sons, Jacob, Isaac, and Daniel, and life was good. Jacob was playing guitar. It was December the 5th, I think is when he was, yeah, December the 5th. It was a Friday, and he was playing guitar with friends. He was 19 years old in college on a scholarship, so he was having a good time, what most 19-year-old boys with a girlfriend do. So he was going to come home later that evening, sneak in. He knew not to wake anybody up. And then the next morning, we had a parade in the city that his brothers were in, and he and I were going to finish putting up the tree because we were the only 2 humans in the house that liked to put up a Christmas tree at our home. We actually made ornaments every year, and we had made some that year. So it got late. We went to bed. The younger boys went to sleep. Isaac was 16, just turned 16, and Daniel was, I guess, 7. And so we were sound asleep, and the phone rang and went straight to the answering machine. And it was James's mom, Grandma Judy, and she was yelling our names. And she said that someone had called her and they needed to talk to us right away. I listened to the next voicemail, and it was a hospital in Macon, which is about normally, if you're not driving like a bat out of hell, it's about a 30-minute drive. Jacob was near grandma's house where he was playing guitar. He was 5 minutes away from home and 5 minutes to our local hospital. So, number one, my mind's going crazy. Like, why is he in Macon? Why is he that far away?" And so the gentleman that I called at the emergency said, "Your son is here. You need to come here now." And I said, "Is it an accident? What happened?" He goes, "Ma'am, you need to come here now." And I said, "You've got to give me something." I'm dressing, I'm putting on yesterday's clothes on the top of the basket. James is, calling his mom, getting her to come over and take care of the boys. And so off we jump in the car. And I told James on the way, I said, I, I just feel like something really terrible has happened. So we rush into the emergency. It took us about 20 minutes to get there. We rushed in there, and Jacob's in the emergency center by himself, obviously with nurses, but there's no surgery going on, and he's apparently got head injury. And as I got closer to him, I realized, that it was on the table. That's all I can say. It was pretty horrific. I had run Life Squad years before. I'd seen a lot of horrific things as a very young person, and I don't know why I didn't just totally collapse, but I knew that the emergency room was filling up with teenagers and their parents, and half of everybody that knew us was coming to see Jacob because, they were balloons and flowers and cards and get well soon and we're here for you kind of stuff. And so I end up helping the nurse to clean my son to find out that they've already done several brain scans, and even though he looks perfectly fine everywhere else, there's no activity. He's a donor, and they wanted our permission to let him be a donor, which meant that we were gonna go through the whole night with all of the children wishing him well and hoping he'd be great and all this, and walk away from him while he was still warm, because you can't harvest organs if the person has died. You can't if you sit there and hold the hand of the person you love until the last heartbeat beats, they are not a donor now because it's too late to use those organs. That very second it happens. So it has to be done in spontaneously, and I can't be present. So we left the hospital the next morning. I'll leave out a lot of the details from the hospital, but the boys were devastated. As you know, everybody was there, his girlfriend, their parents. His girlfriend's mom took Daniel home with her and left early and got him out of that situation. We broke the news to Isaac, which, he's was just devastated. That was his best friend besides his brother.
They're closer in age, that
Yeah,
one,
very
right?
much so, yeah. And so we left the hospital in the morning knowing in a few hours or more he was going in surgery, but we had to go pick out a coffin, and that the next time we would see our son, he would be cold and in a coffin that we had to go choose, and we were leaving him while his hands were still warm and his heart was still beating, and it's really hard. He had been accosted at a gas station and shot in the head at close range by the person that
Oh,
that
God.
was, yeah, robbed. The bullet went across the back of the kid sitting in the truck with him, busted through the glass, went across the parking lot into a metal building and bounced off the other side of the wall inside the building. That's how much the velocity that bullet had. But it entered in one spot under the ear and out the other. So that was where the wound was. And that's why there was no brain activity. That was devastating. And what happens to you when you lose someone in a tragic accident is your brain rewires. A lot of that is temporary, but some of it is permanent. You think one way and then the next day you don't. You're the person that cooks all the food in the house, and then the next thing you know, somebody else has become that person. Roles change, personalities change, and relationships are destroyed. And so my good marriage ended almost as quickly as you can count on. We couldn't stand to be around each other. Mostly it was me.
I think
And
that's very
so
common.
it is. By the way, I put a little light on here for you, little this morning. Now, that was 21 years ago that Jacob was murdered. This morning, my ex-husband and I fed him breakfast while he waited on our son so they could go to an event while my Adam and I entertained him with a quiche that we had made. So we mended all those relationships, and that's part of healing. Healing is relationships. Words are relationships. Words are not words. It's connection, right? So it's learning to heal everything, and it includes those relationships. But our marriage ended, and it was 8 months almost to the day that Jacob was killed. It was now like August, and I was coming home. I had been with friends. The boys were at the house, you know, eh, locked in, normal. And I came home, pulled the garage door opened up. I pulled my little Volkswagen bug in there and I opened my door and a man stepped into that spot. And he said, "Can you give me directions to Sandy Run?" I knew he was fake. I knew that was just something that he was saying just to catch me off guard. So I thought of something really quick. I said, "Oh, you mean Lake Joy?" So it was I named another road rather, and he goes, "Yeah." And I went, now I knew I was dead, right? It's like, I'm dying. I'm gonna die right here in my little car.
Yeah.
I said, "Sure, let me get out and I'll get you directions." And he backed up. I got out and I tried to run, grabbed me by the hair. We fisticuffed all the way to his car as he tried to shove me in. I ended up in the back of his car and I saw his license plate number, which I can tell you today is AK30943. So, but I saw his license plate, and when I got up that next time, I ran. I got my son's baseball bat, and I just started swinging it at him and screaming his license plate number at him. There's no reason he could have overpowered me instantly and kill me, but for some reason, he got in his car and he backed down my driveway and he left. He told the police that night that he was just trying to kill someone. I was his fourth victim, not his first. I was the only one that got his license plate number, and yeah, so I escaped an attempted murder on my life in the driveway in the safest subdivision in town. Our our little safety team that walks around the subdivision had walked by 15 minutes prior to that. That's my driveway. But I knew if I didn't take him out or at least escape, that he was gonna walk in my house and probably kill
Right.
my other children too.
I mean, you tell this story, this horrific story of losing your child in such a horrific way. And after that, you're going through your grief journey. Everything's falling apart in some ways. Everything, you're trying to keep life together. And then this happens.
This
Like,
happens.
how do
Yeah.
you,
The red pill, the blue pill, and the purple pill, which one did you want?
right,
So, yeah, we're with you. The DA comes to my house. By that time, we're best friends because 'cause we're going to trial in 30 days on the man that murdered my son, right?
right,
DA and the assistant DA are sitting in my living room after I've ID'd the guy. They had to drive me there to say, "Is this the MF that's the guy?" So, wow. So, he's sitting in my living room and goes, "I can't believe this." And I said,
right.
"I can't believe it either." And he said, "I have to tell you something because you need to know." And I said, "Okay." He goes, when they questioned him a little while ago, they asked him, why did he want to kill someone? And he said, he wanted to kill someone just like Tommy Hardison had. Tommy Hardison was the man that murdered my son. Didn't even know my son, just shot him. The guy that tried to kill me swears he didn't know that I was Jacob's mother, but none of us believe it.
I mean,
He went to jail anyway, but it was frightening.
yeah. How do you, I mean, like, first of all, like, I mean, I think a parent losing a child, how do you go on? How do
It was
you,
really hard because I already had PTSD from Jacob's murder, and I hadn't
right,
really recovered from that. There was no I was in deep grief, and I was in what's called traumatic grief because I hadn't there was no resolution, 30 days after that, if you're still as bad off as you were the first day, yeah, it just got worse. And then that was kinda like icing on it, and talk about my other 2 children. They just lost their brother. Now their mother just fought for her life. She's got her hair is missing out of the back of her head. There's I mean, I've got a man's blood all over my hand where and I punched him as hard as I could. He left one hand free, man. I had to do something with it. So I hit him, but yeah, that was pretty horrible, wasn't it?
yeah,
Yeah, and I call it in my book Fight Club because no one talks about Fight Club. And I said, "How do you top someone murdered my son?" But guess what? I was also attacked by a
right.
serial killer 8 months in. I couldn't even articulate it for the longest time.
Yeah. And it sounds like you're fairly like you have a faith or a religion
I
of
do.
something that you lean
I
in.
lost it for a while because I was really angry at God, yeah. I yelled at God for a while.
Because I mean, I would imagine too, and I would imagine that you're like
Yeah.
I've already done one. Like I don't need
Sure.
another piece, right? Like I
Right.
don't need all these elements to knock me off. Why me?
Why me? Yeah.
Yeah, I can't
Yeah.
imagine that. But that didn't save you then,
I think it brought me back so it took me a while to completely heal and really learn the process of, because people don't really we're not a chameleon. We're not gonna grow back our tail. If it gets chopped off, we lost it. gone. We get a big gaping wound, we're not a sea cucumber either. It doesn't heal overnight or even in a couple of weeks. They can grow back organs, the darn little creatures, but not humans. We were meant to scar. And so we don't really heal, we scar. And that's why I say people with wounds are looking for people with scars. And it's like, how did you do it? How did you get to that scar? But kintsugi was what the idea for the book was, is we beautifully mend, and I didn't need a way to forget what happened to Jacob. I didn't. I didn't need a way to forget what happened to me. I needed a better way to remember what happened. And that meant I had to heal. And that's where the kintsugi came in. It's like, we beautifully mend,
Right.
if
That's
you
the
go in,
gold.
yeah. Yeah, and if you look on the cover of the book, you'll see that there are kintsugi vases and kintsugi throughout and all over the back, but it's just to symbolize the fact that I still have scars from that. I still have scars from the attack.
Physical and emotional and
Emotional. Yeah,
mental and all
right,
the
my
pieces.
shoulder will never be, yeah, it's always gonna be bad, and, just anything that you have that happens to you in life, you've got a scar. If you have a surgery, you can prove it. You can say, "And here's 3 C-sections right here, I know where they are." And here's where I burned myself. We just don't heal, not really, we mend, and so why not beautifully mend? And that's where that came from. But yeah, I lost basically my faith. It's not that I didn't believe in God. I was very angry at God. And I don't believe that God said, she's kind of losing her faith. Let's go down there and have her beat up real quick and then she'll come back. Right? Not the God I serve. Neither did he call Jacob into heaven because he needed him for some big project in heaven, like everybody said, right? God needs him in heaven. I said, for what?
No, and
Jacob?
not and why
What?
in that way? Like, I
Got
mean,
got
none
some
of it makes
extra
sense.
food for him to eat or something? But, no, none of it makes sense, but I do believe that when bad things do happen to you, that God can turn them to good for you. And in my case, that attack actually was the very moment that I said to myself, "I need to live," because up for 8 months after that, I didn't give a rat's ass whether I was alive or not. And I was doing a very lousy job helping my children to grief because we were hiding in our house. After about a month or 2 of someone murdering your son, nobody shows back up.
Mhm. Yeah,
That's
because their
bad
lives
thing
keep
about grief.
going.
Yeah, they just all go, "Whew, I hope she's over that. Does she need us? Ooh, hope not."
I hope
And
they
they
don't
don't
actually
visit
think
me.
that, yeah. I
No,
hope
but
they're just oblivious to other people.
yeah,
I mean, we just kind of it's just like the human nature of we
it's
just keep going and then, we're there for the moment and then we're like, well, what else can I do? Forgetting that these people are living in the same house. They're, like you're seeing all the memories. You're
yeah,
remembering everything that you always did there.
everything. Everything, yeah. I had nightmares that Jacob almost every night for a long time that he was standing up on the balcony. We had a two-story with a balcony on one side over the living room, and he would be standing, go, "Mom," and I go, "Yeah," I go, "Mom," I go, "Yeah," I go, "Mom," I go, "Yeah," and then he would jump. Then I would wake up, and I could never figure that dream out, but I knew that was just my brain's way of reliving that trauma over and over. I was in a trauma treadmill like a little gopher, going round and round.
You know what? I've never said this out loud, but I've had many dreams after my mom died of like different ways of her dying.
Yeah,
And it was, I don't think I ever told anyone that, but it was very weird. And it was like, I
normal.
guess there was like a shame in it because I was young. Like, why am I picturing my mom being like kidnapped and killed in this way when, but I mean, it seems like it's
It's
common.
very normal. Yeah. I eventually became a grief recovery specialist because I went through a grief program that actually stuck, and it was just very, very simple. It's like, you gotta acknowledge it, you gotta live in that grief, you gotta turn this into something where you can find the resilience, and it worked for me, but it there was so much compounded grief that I just kept on writing that book for them. It's like, "Okay, we need to take this a little bit further, we gotta give people something to kinda hold on to," and that's where my 7 to Heal came from because they're not steps necessarily, but, one of the very first things that people have to do is say that they need help or get help, and that's the first H is help, and then healing is just setting that yourself, into that healing. Don't wanna screw it up too much. I had where'd my bookmark at? There it is, my little bookmark. I have these online you guys can get for free, but we'll
Oh,
cover that
awesome.
another
Yeah.
time. But being healthy, no one thinks about eating right, drinking water, having enough to, eat, eating the right foods, not eating carbs. Like 4 carbs on your plate and a piece of meat is not a good meal.
Well, it is a good meal. It's not
It's a
good for
great
you.
meal, but please don't post that on Facebook. That is not healthy.
Right.
So and then having hope. And I think a lot
That's
that's one of
hard.
the things that I lost first was hope. But you can find something, are you hopeful for what? That the mint flavored toothpaste. I mean, find 10 or 20 things that you're hopeful for that, that you can think and go, I really hope that I have this, and I hope that life is good, and I hope that I find someone that I can help like me. I hope that I can make friends. In your case, I hope I can find someone to interview that'll teach me something new about what I've already think I know. And then holiness is just worthiness. We hate ourselves when we grieve. We don't like us.
Yeah, we think we should be done with it. We think
Yeah,
like, why am I like it was 5 months ago, it was 20 years ago, it was whatever.
yeah,
Like, why am I still thinking of this?
yeah.
Is
And
that
then we have
shame?
people come up to us and go, "What's wrong?" And it's like, "Yeah, just thinking about Jacob." Still? It's like, "Yeah, he's still dead, so I'm still gonna think about."
Yeah.
I'm cocky and funny, and I'm pretty much that's my personality. When I go on stage, I make people laugh, I make them cry, and then I make them laugh. But I think that's because God gave me that gift of joy, and I can't get rid of it, so I pass it along. But that's the next thing is being happy. We don't give ourselves permission to be happy. We feel like we have to punish ourselves for that, and that's what holds people down in the grief for years and years
We
and
think there's a timetable, like we should be sad for X amount of time, and then
yeah,
what if
yeah,
I
well,
laugh? What if
let's
I
face
watch a
it.
TV show that's
Yeah.
funny?
Yes, we're afraid to be joyful. We can't go out with friends because that would look bad, and it's like because the next step in the 7 is being hilarious, being able to laugh your ass off about something and make fun of someone, even someone that you lost. I tell this story because it happened the day of Jacob's funeral. My brother and his wife flew down on, I think, Southwestern Airlines, right? Together, of course, husband and wife. His ex wife booked the same flight. They ended up sitting side by side, the three of them, right? Well, they're right up in the front row. Stewart finds out about it. He grabs the mic. He's like, so is anyone flying today? Welcome to Southwestern. Is anyone flying today with their wife by chance? And then, the hands go up and he goes, anyone flying with their ex-wife by chance? And my brother, who's also an asshole like me, stands up, takes the mic, and he turns around to everybody, in the audience. He goes, my girlfriend tried to get on this flight, but we had to book her on the next one down. So, and it made everybody laugh. And then my brother told that in the kitchen that morning before we left for the funeral. We were all dying. And I'm like, is this even allowed? And, it's those moments that we feel like we don't have permission to have, and they come naturally. And we should just enjoy that because that's part of healing is being able to laugh and being able to laugh out loud.
The most important, I mean, to me, the most important piece that you said is this like it's a general awareness of like this is where you are and this is what you need to do. Until you have that, it's just like this, it's like a shame wave. It's like it just you're drowning in it.
You're paying a bill that you have no money with to pay.
Oh,
You
that's a
can't
good.
you can
Yeah.
never do it. You just
Yeah.
keep trying, but you're just never gonna pay it off. The large credit card with the 75% interest rate, right?
Yeah, and it's so fascinating to me that even I mean, my mom died so 35 years ago, I think. Yeah, 35 years ago. So this was late 80s, early 90s. People weren't talking about grief. I can maybe remember I was put in like a school counselor like twice, maybe right after she died. And my life had changed a lot because my dad lived in Georgia. My mom lived in Massachusetts. I lived with my mom, but I was visiting my dad when she died. And so like it was right before school started. So I had to start at a new school,
Oh, you poor
new,
thing.
like
Oh,
I'm the kid with the Boston accent coming into a Georgia school for dead mom, like all the things that
you
like
realize that moving across town causes grief for a child, right?
yeah.
Moving across country and you lost your mom and all of that together compounded grief for you. You needed to be in counseling immediately.
I did, and I needed but what I did at the time, and this is why it's so important, I think, that we have these conversations and that you put your book out there, that you're doing the work that you do, is at the time, as an 8-year-old, I guess you understand that what death is just in a small way, right? Like, I saw my mom's body in the casket, and I figured she was dead. I saw the burial, all those pieces. But at the same time, I associated her death with abandonment. And so everything that I did after that point was in hopes that I was a good student. I was making my dad happy so that he wouldn't abandon me, because my mom abandoned me in my small brain. And it was just like, I didn't realize this until I was in my 30s, of like why I was doing the things that I did. But I was just so fearful that everyone else was going to leave. Like, she had a choice. She didn't have a choice, but
No, you put yourself in the position of being the one that controlled it.
yeah. And I think back, and I don't, obviously my dad was doing the best he knew how to do with the tools that he had. And my grandmother, like the people around me were just, they didn't know how to grieve. Like, nobody did. Nobody was really
Nobody did.
talking about it.
No one teaches that. I do.
Yeah. Which is great. And I think, to your earlier point of like how we lost that from 100 years ago, of like,
Doing it.
that we talk about death, we see it, it's part of this experience that we have here on earth.
But we don't model it anymore, and that's what I think we need to do. We've lost that
Well, we
ability
make
to
it like
model.
this shameful thing.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I mean, people are going to die every day, and that's just part of it. And some people are going to die too soon, and some are going to live too long. Like,
No
there's
guarantee. There's no guarantee of that.
exactly. And I think of you in the hospital, and I know we kind of went past that moment.
Yeah. I don't I put people there too long, and it gets very traumatic for my audience, so I
I would
try to get there
imagine.
and back, yeah.
But I'm curious, because I think that's
Sure.
something that we don't know how to experience. Like, how do we, was it a checklist moment for you? Was it like, these are the things that I need to do so I can like move forward?
I took on that responsibility of protecting everyone that was waiting to see Jacob, so I should not have been helping the nurse clean brain matter off of the table. No offense, but I shouldn't have been that person. I did, though, because she said, "I have to clean him up," and she said, "If you'll step out," and I went, "I'm not leaving, but I'll help you." But I knew his girlfriend was on the way. We'd already called her mother, woke them up. They're all on their way, and everybody else in town had already found out because teenagers that go to school together call each other just like that, and everyone was coming.
Was it a dissociation for you, or were you fully in the moment, do you think?
I remember every moment pretty much of that hospital, and that was a long time ago, and I remember all of it. I think I started to break down finally when we were in the ICU, when he was on support and we were holding his hand and we were trying to leave, which is really
I
hard.
can't imagine.
It's like, "Yeah, so I'll just stay here until y'all wheel him down." It's like, "We can't let you do that because you can't," and so we'd already made that decision, and that was hard, and I know for a lot of parents, there's nothing wrong if you have a child that's dying and you wanna hold that baby in your arms until that baby dies, that is your business, and I'm all for it. If you make the other decision, I'm all for it again. It's still a loss, and no one can judge you for that because they told me it's like, "Well, you change your mind at any moment, we're good." you know? But the very next morning, there were 5 people who had a new leash on life because of Jacob, and I ended up knowing each one of them, not
Really?
personally. I knew who they were and what they did for a living. They knew who I was and our family, and it was just a feeling, and I would sometimes cry when because they started to pass after, some time. We would lose one, and I would lose Jacob in a way again. It's like I lost, yeah, I lost his kidney, but but I lost a part of him. There's another part of him that's going. So it was hard to do that, to be that gift giver, right? But there was also another side of it that just gave us all this great joy.
There's beauty in what you just said and the sadness of that, because I've never heard anyone say that before, of like the giving of the organs and people having it, and then when they pass,
Yeah.
another lost feeling. Like, I think
Yeah.
that is so important to share, because
Well, it is. I don't want
people
to
don't think
stop
about it.
anybody from organ donation because it's just been a beautiful gift to know it's like you're like, the birthdays, Mother's Day. you know? Talk about divine intervention. The first Mother's Day after Jacob's death, I was going through a box in my closet just to like people do, and I pulled out a letter that Jacob had written me last year, the year before for Mother's Day. He didn't send cards, he wrote novels, right? I mean, he writes. So he wrote this long, beautiful letter for me for Mother's Day, and I remembered it, of course, but I read it and I just laid in the floor and cried. But those kind of things bring back really good memories. It's like you don't want to take all that and hide it or burn it anywhere. You wanna run into it again, right? And that was a big gift that I saw that on Mother's Day. How what are the odds, right? But that's the same for organ donation. You've got another person that's alive because your child, when he was 16 years old, walked in and asked your husband, "What does this mean if I sign the back of this card?" And he says, "Well, that means that if something were to happen to you, that you're okay with them using your organs for someone else." He's like, "Oh, that sounds good." And he signs it and he walks away, and you don't think anything about it until 3 years later when he dies. And then you honor his wishes to do what he wanted to do.
And that's probably a very hard decision for a lot of people and maybe easier for some. But either way, like you said, like there's no judgment there. We don't know how we're going to, also, we don't know how we're going to act in any of
No
those
idea.
moments. And nor should we have to prepare for that. But,
Oh, no, and don't give it if anybody writes you a book and says, "Here's what you do when you lose someone," punch 'em. Tell them I said to.
yeah,
I'll take the
no,
blame. But no, you
but
can't
everyone wants
write
the
them.
book.
Yeah.
Everyone wants the book
Yeah.
that's not going to help them, right? Because we all have to find our own journey through it. There might be tips and tricks and things that we can consider, but
Yeah, you've got well, you can prepare yourself by modeling grief right now, by understanding it, knowing what not to say at a funeral. There's a whole section, and I call them middle 8 intermission and the of the book where I just stop and go, "Please don't say these things at a funeral," and I explain how we broke it, and, it's a great section. I can just pull that out, put a cover on it, and sell it to
everyone,
funeral parlors.
right?
But
Yeah.
but so that people will kind of be prepared for that part of it. It is hard to lose, but there's no right or wrong way to grieve. It is when the grief becomes so obsessive and so harmful that it starts to hurt the person, and there's no healing in sight. There's no mending that in your future, and you start to step all over yourself. And again, I don't think that 8 months after Jacob's death that I was supposed to get attacked so that I would appreciate life. It's like that wasn't the point. I wanted to live because I had 2 children on the other side of that door that really needed me, and I needed to get my shit together so I could help them, you
And
know?
how long after that devastating attack were you did you feel like you were on your grief journey?
We got through 2 jury trials,
Okay.
the murder of Jacob and then the attack on me, and that
Yeah,
took
because
a
that's
little bit
just
of
reliving
time.
everything,
Yeah,
right?
right. Isaac went through a deep depression a year after that. We had to get him through that, and he got through it okay. We ended up sending him to college in Northern Kentucky with family, just to get him out of this area for a short time. Came back, got married, came back with Jessica, and they're married with my 2 only grandchildren.
One
So
more. Come on. Come on, kids. Let's
make
go.
make more, make more. But, but yeah, Daniel, his is a progress because Daniel was 7. So Daniel's real grief came when he turned 19-ish, and he was the same age as his brother
Yep.
was
I know
when
that
he
well.
passed. Now Daniel's into his 20s, but those are hard moments when those are places in a child's life when they get to a certain age, that they start to relive that experience as the person that died and really rethink it again. So grief is a long, lifelong process. Grief recovery is. I think getting over the traumatic grief, the PTSD. I had PTSD so bad after the attack that I couldn't even walk down a hallway by myself. Any person that was unfamiliar to me that started walking towards me, I just almost passed out. I mean, it was really, really
Rightfully
troubling.
so. I mean,
Yeah, it took a while for that one to get
right.
over. The first thing that I tell people is use the word S.C.A.R, because everything that you've already got in your brain. Remember, I told you when you go through bad grief, when you go through a traumatic event, your brain rewires itself.
Mhm.
Some of it will go back to normal, but a lot of it is permanent, right? You're not the cook anymore. You don't want to be married to the person you're with. Most marriages fail. It's common for it to fail, not most, but those things change. But the things that you have inside of you right now are strength, courage, adaptability, meaning the ability to change, and then resilience. They're already pre-wired into your brain, and I use them as SCAR, and that's where that kind of came from.
I
So
didn't even
this,
put it together.
yeah, strength, courage, adaptability, and resilience. They're already pre-wired in. You just got to kind of tap into those and kind of tell yourself, I can do this. I've got the strength to do this, right? It's not my fault. I didn't do it. I've got that. I've got to have courage because most of us don't have the strength to make any kind of change in our life.
No,
We just,
it's
we
really
just
hard.
we give up. Like, I just not going to do it. You can't make me kind of attitude. So it's got to be internal, but it's actually there. We were created with that in us already. And if you say that and you go, and I was meant to scar, that I'm always going to have it. I didn't need an eraser to get rid of what happened to me. I needed a highlighter, right? I didn't need to forget, I needed a better way to remember, right? So if you're going to scar, then make it a way that you can remember it in a good way. No one's going to give you a lobotomy where you'll forget about what happened to your mom. No one's going to take away my memory of what happened to Jacob. Why would we want to live that way? We were supposed to remember.
I did read. I remember reading one piece, or I remember one piece of like our back and forth a little bit about how grief doesn't end, or we don't like close the door on that. And I get in trouble with a lot of people that I talk to on this show about grief because I do kind of feel, and maybe it's wrong because I talk about it all the time now, that in my 30s I closed the door on grieving my mom. And I think it's because, and maybe it's the wrong terminology, but I think it's because I don't remember my mom. And so for so long, that growing up period, maybe because I was pushing stuff down and I wasn't actively remembering because people weren't telling me stories because we don't want to upset the kid, right? Like we don't want
Yeah.
to. So she was a figment. She was an idea of a person that existed in my life growing up. And so all of the grief was really seeing other people with their happy families and their mothers, seeing, like hanging out with people, getting close to other people's mothers. So a lot of that was that. And when my grief journey started in like early 30s, I was going to a therapist and she was like, you realize that every decision that you've done with your 8-year-old brain that was afraid of losing someone else. And like that's when the clouds parted and I started actively grieving the loss of my mother, and then it felt like it was over. So
Yeah.
it's weird.
You were really just suppressing everything, and then all of a sudden there it was.
And
And that's
then no
the
more.
yeah. And, and nothing, like I said, nothing against family. I had a very quiet, childhood, in a sense that my mother was very loving, but not to me. So she was not a nurturer. I had to schedule appointments to have a talk with her as she got older. There was just no nurturing. I didn't sit on her lap. We didn't chat. We never shopped together. She never curled my hair. She never combed my hair. She just wasn't that type of mom. And I learned years later after she died that she was probably Asperger's. And when I was finishing this book, I was teaching grief recovery to a lot of people, but I felt like I was teaching like one person at a time, and I would be like 100 before I helped anybody. And so I spoke to good, and that's where the book came from. And it's a New York published book with Morgan James. But I was finishing the book up. He sent me to do a last reread and a last re-edit. Come back and everything. He says, go through it one more time. And I said, I really want to talk about my last statement because I want to do, give me about a week. And because during the time I was researching about my mom, the more I learned about Asperger's and autism, the more and she was brilliant, freaking smartest woman you ever knew. I mean, she worked for the governor, the United States government. She flew she was as smart as she could be. Terrible mom as far as nurturing, but she was a great cook. But the more I learned about her, the more I saw that in me. And I was like, this is me. And that was the revelation that I made towards the end of the book, and I wrote that last piece and it went to publishing. I said, "I think I'm autistic, I'll let y'all know." So and then, several months after it went to press, the diagnosis, I got my appointment finally, and I went in and got diagnosed. But a lot of that, my inability to handle grief was because I really wasn't nothing was modeled to me as a child. I didn't have nurturing, I didn't know how to lose anyone. I lost my grandmother, we did have a funeral, it wasn't in her parlor, it was at a funeral home, and I did see my dad, modeling grief for a minute, but there was no discussions, no talking about it. My babysitter committed suicide when I was, like, 10 or anything, and no one told me why, they just said it was over a boyfriend, and I'm like, "Why would anybody kill themselves over a boy?"
Mm, yeah.
You know, doesn't make sense, you know? It's like, "That's
Yeah.
dumb," but no conversations, nothing, and I really just wasn't when Jacob was killed, I really seriously wasn't prepared for that.
Although I mean, to be fair, I don't know that anyone is really
No
prepared
one's
for
really
that
prepared for
experience.
that, but
I think we
there
can
was
prepare for like
yeah,
a grandparent. We can prepare for those things a little
sure.
bit easier, but this trauma piece is that's a whole new
That's
world.
that's different, and then no one came forward, and they wanted to do marriage counseling for James and I, and then James and I are friends now, we the 3 of us co-parent he's married now, and we all go to the ball games, watch kids play.
That's great.
It's
That's
great,
important.
and we all get along just great, but, no one tells you, how you're gonna deal with all that, you don't know how it's gonna affect you, sorry, I lost my train of thought, but
No, it's fine. But do you think I mean part of this feels so much like the world already gives us permission to grieve, but
yeah.
it feels like we don't have that permission. And it's almost like once we feel like we have the permission to be fully however we want, whether that's I want to punch something, I want to cry on the floor for 16 hours, I want to watch this really funny movie that I've always loved, whatever it is, once we feel that permission, I think that's when things start.
Yeah, so there's a set I told you I'm seeking my PhD, I'm getting my master's, and so I just went through a class on and they were talking about grief, and I think it's McMinn, but he said that it takes so many months to get through the initial trauma of the grief, right? If it's after 30 days and you're still in the deep grief, you probably need to get some help, but probably about 6 months to 18 months is about the time, but people give each other 6.5 weeks. That's it. 6.5 weeks, and
Like
then
from beginning to end,
yeah,
like that's
and
all you
we
get.
do that to our neighbor. We don't know we're doing it, but we set as a people, as a, you know, creature living on Earth, after 6.5 weeks, we're like, "Well, what's her problem?" I mean, God, yeah, it's
Yeah.
taking a little long to grieve, don't you think?
Until
But
they realize it themselves.
yeah, until it happens to them, that's right, and by the way, we all are gonna face grief in one way or another, and if you're lucky enough to have escaped through life without some kind of tragedy, congratulations, but it's coming to a house near you. It's yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I hate creating a silver lining in my own life, but
Oh, now you need a few silver linings in
the
there.
version of me I feel is far different than the version of me had that not happened to me as a kid.
Yes.
To the rewiring point and all these things, but the trajectory that I saw, if I look back on that version of me in that version of my life and where I lived and all the other things, seems a lot different. And so there is a silver lining of the things that I've gained because failing at grief for so long, eventually finding the way to do it.
Yeah.
So it's a weird thing
Well,
to say though.
look at the path I went down. I'm Dorothy, and I've had the red shoes on the whole damn time and didn't know it. It took I'm in my 60s and discover I'm autistic. You talk about putting puzzle pieces into place. Every bully, every bad thing. I was sexually abused by 2 people in my life. I was harassed by 2 employers. I had to quit the legal field because of sexual harassment. I dropped out of college twice. I went back after Jacob died, I went back. He was studying business, right? And had a small scholarship. And I went back to the college that he was going to, and I finished my business degree. I walked valedictorian at age 52 at
Wow.
college, but I didn't find out I was autistic until I was 60. But the whole thing, remember the purple pill?
Yeah.
Just it all would I know that today? Would I understand why, I was picked on as a child? I was a very creative teenager and I got through high school with a little bit of popularity, but it was very strategic and I was exhausted all the time. I couldn't keep a relationship. I would laugh at people. I've been married 4 times. My first marriage lasted 30 days. He was engaged to be married to someone else. My second husband was abusive, verbally and everything else. James was my nice husband, and someone murdered our child.
Yeah.
And I've got Adam, and God's gift to me for all I've been through is that I am perfectly paired with someone very much different than me, but we love each other so much, and we've made it all this way. But I used to tell people, I don't have a lot of close friends because I'm autistic. I have friends, but I only have 1 or 2 close friends, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm always a bride and never a bridesmaid. That's funny, but it's like but it's if had I known if I'd been diagnosed as a child, a lot of the things that I went through as a child would have been avoided. But my family didn't talk. I could have had a disease and my mother would have never let a soul know about it.
But that was the time period too, I
Yeah,
think.
I was born in '62. That's right. They would have institutionalized me if and half of my siblings, because I have 5 brothers and 4 sisters. So,
Wow. You've had
yeah,
quite a life, and all the things, any of those things that you just mentioned could knock someone off their path, could knock someone out of the race. And you have this resilience to that R. I mean, that it seems like,
it's wired in there, and I think that's what's really kept me through. It was just harder to get after Jacob's death because I was helping everyone else, and I never went back and helped myself, and when I finally did, it I'm not kidding, when I tell you it was almost an instant, like, revelation, I was like,
oh, yeah.
"Shit," it's like, "Let's do this," and I wrote the fir in grief recovery, you write a letter to whatever happened to you.
To
Some
the
people write
event.
to the event, to the
Okay.
person, and so I went to grief recovery to get through the grief of my son, right? And then I thought I'm gonna do Jacob first, and then I'm gonna work on
Right.
the
Because
attack
that's
from
how it
the
works,
guy that
right?
tried to kill me, yeah, the murderer that's, out there somewhere, and instead I wrote a letter to my mother because my grief started from the neglect that I suffered as a child. There was no nurturing, so everything's tied when I said everything's tied to relationships, they start at that very young age, that nurturing between that attachment, and how you handle grief a lot of times depends on how well the attachment is in the parenting as well. So for you, you lost your nurturer, the nurturer for you, you lost very early, and that's what made it so difficult for you. What we've learned in grief in the last 10 or 15 years, it's amazing.
Do you feel different now than you did like the day before Jacob? Do you feel like a different
I'm a
person
whole
existing
different
in the world?
person. Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's a wonderful gift, that you can do because a lot of people don't. They don't make it through that.
Right,
I've
exactly.
met a
So you've
few.
evolved in a way. Do you
Yeah.
feel that how would you describe yourself then versus now?
I think I was seeking income and status, and I wanted to be like the perfect woman, and I was, business lady, and I was a formidable person, and I made myself. I had a great person to go after. My mother was a businesswoman of all businesswomen.
You check the
Yeah.
boxes.
She was there, I knew it, I followed her pattern. I was smart like her, and I knew I could do it. I was gonna be a billionaire, in business, real estate person, you know, and all of that was fake because I hated it.
What would this Sylvia say to that version of you?
I would have probably told her back then, I would have told her, "Just go back and get your degree, go finish your law degree." I've lost my desire to be a lawyer, I'm gonna be a psychologist instead, it's alright. But, but hey, but I would have told her to do that, and focus more on the kids and less on the house and, just there was just
The
too many.
relationships.
Yeah, on the relationships, yeah, and because again, it's never about words, it's always about relationships, when we talk to each other, and the relationship with God too. I was a Christian because I wore a cross and had a Bible and said
Right.
I was, right? But when you have chat with God at 70 miles an hour in 30-degree weather with the top down on your Volkswagen convertible, that's different type of being a Christian. And when you come out of it on the other side, if you've given if you've given yourself to that scar process, if you've given yourself to that change, then there's no telling what you're going to come out on the other end, but it's going to be good.
Yeah. No, I mean, your story is so, I mean, it's cliche to say this, but inspiring in a way that you've moved forward. You found this new path for you. As hard as the path was, you've paved something new in front of you, and you're kind of working towards that. And I think it's a good inspiration to others to know that like it's possible. They don't have to follow what you did, but they can
Yeah.
move through.
Yeah, and the skills, I mean, the scar, just if you take nothing back with you, take the scar with you that you have all. I promise you, your brain is already wired to be able to do those things. Your adaptability is there, your strength is there, your courage is there. You only need a little bit of each, and then resilience, that is called bounce back. The resilience is part of your brain. When I told you it rewires, it does it for a reason. It's to protect you. That's why. Yeah, so everything in your body, when you go through something traumatic like that, starts rewiring, redoing to get you ready so that you can scar, so
Speaking of
you have
Scar,
to. Yeah.
how can people like connect with you, find your book, find like get in your
Yeah.
space?
Get in my space. You can if you go to goldscars.com, I mean, literally, that's the website, and you will find pretty much everything you need there.
Perfect.
Let me make sure it's got the thing on it still, and then I'm gonna give you a code, but Gold Scars is the name of the book. You can find it everywhere, but if you buy it from my publisher,
Hmm.
I get credit for it on New York Times, right? If you buy it
Perfect.
from Amazon, I don't.
Okay.
So,
Good to
it's
know.
not to make sure everyone does, my publisher says if they go to my website and they go to goldscars.com and you hit the buy the book, get the book, and you go to the buy from publisher, put in MJA 40, M Morgan, J James, A author, 40, you'll get 40% off the book.
Oh
So it's
wow.
just a fraction. Yeah, it's
Awesome.
yeah, really a good deal. And then on the Seven to Heal, I have the Seven to Heal portion of the book free on my website. So if you go there, look for it. It's in the little scroller, but it'll say download the free report. You'll get the free version. It's a small version of it. And
Awesome.
we do have a larger portion of that coming out really soon. I've got it written. We just got to polish it up. And that should be on the website, hopefully by the end of the year. So we're going to try to offer that one for cheap, cheap, but
Yeah, we'll definitely put the links in the show notes. So if you're listening, you don't have to rewind and type in some
I
stuff. You
try to make it easy.
yeah.
Goldscars.com.
Yeah. And we'll put that in the show notes. And are you on socials? Do you like when
I
people
am.
connect with you?
Yeah, if you put Sylvia Moore Myers in Google, you'll find everything about me except for my blood type, and I'm an A positive.
And that's important
And now
information.
you
Yeah.
know.
And just in case you need some. No,
Just to
it's
be
been
clear.
it's been such a wonderful journey to go on this conversation with you. So thank you for being open to this experience and helping
Yeah,
heal a little piece of me. You know how we said that little puzzle? Today's puzzle piece is recalling and remembering those dreams that I had as a kid and realizing that they weren't weird. They weren't
that was your brain rewiring you for
yeah.
healing. You're
So thank you for a piece
yeah.
of my healing journey.
I wanted to say one thing about autism and healing. I found something as I go through my grad school and my final months of this is that there's very little research done on grief recovery for autistic children. There's very little on children alone. I mean, there's enough out there that I wrote many papers on it so far, but when I search for autism, it comes up blank in the grief. So I've talked to a lot of folks, a lot of the professors, and I'm writing my next book called Being Tizzy, which was my nickname as a child, Tizzy, and all my family still calls me Tizzy, so you feel free. But that's gonna be the next book. I really want to focus on that because I think we have an entire group of people, 5 million adults in this country right now are autistic, right? Adult autistics, not let alone children, one in every 40. And that hasn't even scratched the surface. There's no research on it.
Yeah. That's
Yeah, so
important.
I want to make sure that there is.
Well, you're starting it.
I'm trying.
You're spreading the word and you are being open with your journey and how, you can help other people just by hearing your story. People are going to hear your story. The most random of sentences that you shared will stick with them. And that's the beauty of storytelling because we
I think
never know what part's going to resonate or light someone up.
Before I got on your show, I talked to God and I said, whatever the words that come out of my mouth, I want them to represent you. So whether I mess it all up, it's all your fault. No, I'm kidding. But, sorry, me and God have a good relationship. But I wanted that because I know that, like you said, there's somebody out there, whether they're autistic or whether they got children who are grieving or whether they've just been stuck in this grief for so long and they don't know why. There's a really good way out. And at the very end of it, it's kind like I said, you've had it in you the whole time, Dorothy. Just click your heels, right? But I can show you that. And I try to make everything I do as free as possible because when I wrote the book, I really seriously meant to get as many people healed as possible. And I wasn't going to do that one on one in Georgia, you know?
No doubt you're doing it, and thank you for what you're putting into the world. And
No,
it's
thank
just
you. Yeah.
it's really is it I'll say this silly inspiring word again though, but it's to see you having survived all those things and now thrive through because of all the other adjectives and descriptions that we can make. It's really just a beautiful story, although you all the scars that you're showing through there. It's
Hey, I
important to
got
show
scars.
those.
I'm proud of them.
Yeah.
There they are.
Well,
I'll show you mine. You show me yours.
exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you for being a part of this journey for me and all the listeners. And if you need to reach out to Sylvia, please do that. I'm sure
Yes,
she would love to
please.
hear from you. Check out her book, buy it from the publisher, use the code that we put in the show notes, all those things.
If
Thank you
you
for
go
being a
to my
part.
website,
Yeah,
you can find me.
exactly. So
There's
find
no
Sylvia.
there's no way you won't find me.
For more information, please visit www.thelifeshiftpodcast.com.